Hey everyone, I'm Tarini Sood and you're watching the final episode of The Making Of. Our guest today is an Australian native and the founder of the artisanal coffee brand in India, KC Roasters. The brand offers everything from cold brews to coffee brewing workshops and even has a cozy little cafe in Bandra. We have with us Shannon D'Souza. So Shannon, when did your interest in coffee first begin?
I actually grew up in Australia in Sydney, and so there's a big coffee culture in Sydney. And when I moved to Mumbai around 11 years ago, I really struggled to find a good cup of coffee, like a good cappuccino or a good flat white. I usually found the coffee is very burnt and very bitter. So my family has a coffee estate in Chikmagalur, and so I decided that, and it's a coffee that we would export to Australia. So I was really interested in finding out how I could get beans from not just my family's farm, but other farms, and how we could roast the coffee and make a cup of coffee where you didn't have to add sugar, you know? So I think that interest came about maybe 5-6 years ago, and I started KC in 2016.
So how did you decide to start KC Roasters?
I had a couple of friends that I wanted to bring on the journey. They didn't have any experience in coffee. So the first thing was to do a coffee diploma. So I went to Italy with the Specialty Coffee Association of Europe, and I studied quite a lot about roasting and brewing techniques. And then I went and spent some time at my family's estate learning how people would farm coffee. So between kind of doing the specialty coffee diploma, going to different coffee shops in Australia, baristing in Australia, that kind of got me into the idea of getting into coffee.
Okay, what would you say makes KC Roasters different from every other coffee brand in the market?
We're all about the farm and its produce. So like coming from a farming background, I go to farms, and in coffee, it's a little like wine. Like you have in wine, you have Sauvignon Blanc, and you'd have different grapes that would produce different flavors. So I wanted to go to different farms and work particularly on processing. So one of the things in coffee, we have something called like a washed coffee, where you take the coffee cherry and you just wash it through, and it produces a very your typical nutty and chocolatey flavors. But I wanted to focus Koinonia on going and sourcing more fruitier coffees, and so we have a process called naturals, which is very famous in like Africa. This is where Ethiopian coffee and stuff is built upon. And then another process called honey coffee, which is a semi-dried process, which is very popular in Costa Rica to say. So these processes I wanted to really focus on. So I'd say our processing of coffee and working with farmers is something really, really unique to KC.
Now, why would you come back to India to start a business? Like, why not do it in Australia itself?
I feel like Australia has a very high coffee culture, of which none of it is really Indian coffee. And eventually I want to open something in Australia. But I realized that we had to inspire the farmers. So a lot of coffee in India was built upon farmers wanting better yield rather than better quality of coffee. Okay. So they would grow different species so they would get more coffee in the estate rather than the best coffee. So by creating a coffee culture in India where the farmers become an experience, suddenly they're more into producing better quality coffee and getting a better price for it. And I think once we get to an extent where India has 30, 40, 50 farms producing very, very high coffee, then I would want to take that culture overseas. But right now, being in India and just seeing specialty coffee take off, like it's in its really small form, I think that's creating the farmers to be really excited. The processing methods is picking up like crazy. So I think it's starting a culture here from the farm to the cup and then taking that overseas.
How important would you say social media is when it comes to marketing your brand? What's the social media platform that you use most?
We use Instagram the most. I think it's very important because we're trying to change the culture of coffee that's been in India. So India's typically been known for South Indian filter culture. But we want people to not come to a coffee shop and have a cup of coffee, but we want them to brew coffee at home. And social media is a way of being able to explain that visually. And sometimes getting up and making a cup of coffee in the morning, people don't feel very excited about that. And that feeling gives them a lot of excitement to kind of get up and do it anymore.
If you had one piece of advice for like a newcomer, someone who's just about starting out in their journey in like to be a food entrepreneur, what would that piece of advice be?
Make sure you're passionate about the project and you're not just in it to make money. And I don't mean go to the other extent where it's not making money at all, but you have to be passionate about it. The food industry looks like a great opportunity, but it actually is a lot of hard work, whether it's consistency, quality, encouraging the customer into your idea or what you're offering them. So I'd say make sure you're driven by passion, because if it's about money, you're going to burn out.
So you would have heard about Maggie's new Apna food business campaign, where Maggie India is actually empowering home chefs to showcase their own talents by offering them the means to start their own food delivery service or their own online food channel. What are your thoughts about this campaign?
I think the campaign is really exciting because when I started Koinonia, very little of my time went into coffee. So much of it went into paperwork and understanding the market and getting all these tools and resources that aren't out there. And I think if Maggie has a campaign where the entrepreneur can focus on their food and their passion, and there's so many other parts of it that's kind of like people are willing to hold their hand, whether it's through capital, through mentorship. I think that's really exciting. I would want that, not just when I started out, but more and more even today. So I think if someone's willing to hold their hand and help them through that, then that's great for the industry.
No, that's a great answer. I completely agree with you. Now, before we wind up, I want to ask you 3 quick questions. Okay? Are you ready? Just answer them in whatever comes to your head first.
Sure.
So if you could eat one Indian food for the rest of your life, what would that be?
It would be Goan food. Can I say a cuisine? Goan.
Sure.
Yeah, Goan.
Anything in particular?
I like my prawn and fish curry. I could totally do that every day. Yeah.
Okay. One ingredient that you think makes everything better?
Coffee. Chai. I was going to say chai, actually. no, definitely coffee. I think coffee makes everything.
If you could describe the future of the Indian food landscape in one word, what would that be?
I think just one word. But I think the Indian landscape has so much spices, and I think people are wanting to discover that more and more. With veganism and all of these things coming up. And I think when I go back to Australia, everyone's asking me to pick up spices and take it home for them. So I feel like Indian spices and the flavor of that is just going to change everything.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us, Shannon. It's been great having you on the show.
Awesome. Thanks very much for having me, and all the best to everyone that's participating in the Maggie's program. And I think it's great, and hopefully it adds a lot of life to their businesses. And all the best of luck.
Thank you all for staying with us through all these episodes. I wish you all the best for your own food journeys. And this is me signing off until we see each other again.